city. Hare Krishna. Chapter 71, Lord Krishna in Indrapad city. In the presence of great sages Narada and all other associates of Lord Krishna, Uddhava considered the situation and then spoke as follows. My dear Lord, first of all, let me say that the great sages Narada Muni has requested you to go to Hastinapur to satisfy King Yudhishthira, your cousin, who is making arrangement to perform the great sacrifice known as Raj Surya. I think therefore that your lordship should immediately go and there to help the king in this great virtue. However, although to accept the invitation offered by the sages Narada as primary is quite appropriate. At the same time, my lord, it is your duty to give protection to your surrendered soul. Both purposes can be served if we understand the whole situation. Unless we are victorious over all the king, no one can perform this Raj Surya sacrifice. In other words, it is to be understood that the king Yudhishthira cannot perform his great sacrifice without gaining victory over the brilliant king Jarasandha. The Raj Surya sacrifice can be performed only by one who has gained victory over all directions. Therefore, to execute both purposes, we first have to kill Jarasandha. I think that if we can somehow or other gain victory over Jarasandha, all our purpose will automatically be served. The imprisoned king will be released, and with the great pleasure, we shall enjoy the spread of your transcendental fame for having saved the innocent king whom Jarasandha has imprisoned.
But King Jarasandha is not an ordinary man. He has proved a stumbling block even to great warriors because his bodily strength is equal to the strength of 10,000 elephants. If there is anyone who can conquer this king, he is none other than Bhimasena, because he also possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants. The best thing would be for Bhimasena to fight alone with him. Then there would be no unnecessary killing of many soldiers. In fact, it will be very difficult to conquer Jarasandha when he stands with his Aksohini. Is that right? Aksohini divisions of soldiers. We may therefore adopt a policy more favorable to the situation. We know that King Jarasandha is very much devoted to the Brahmanas. He is very charitably disposed towards them. He never refuses any request from a Brahmana. I think, therefore, that Bhimasena should approach Jarasandha in the dress of a Brahmana, beg charity from him, and then personally engage in fighting him. And in order to assure Bhimasena's victory, I think that your lordship should also accompany him. If the fighting takes place in your presence, I am sure Bhimasena will emerge victorious, because simply by your presence, everything impossible is made possible. Just as Lord Brahma created this universe, and Lord Shiva destroys it simply through your influence. Actually, you are creating and...
Actually, you created and destroyed the entire cosmic manifestation. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are only the superficially visible causes. Creation and destruction are actually performed by the invisible time factor, which is your impersonal representation. Everything is under the control of this time factor. If you invisible time factor can perform such wonderful acts through Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, will not your personal presence help Bhimsen conquer Jarasandha? My dear Lord, when Jarasandha is killed, the queens of all the imprisoned kings will be so joyful at their husbands being released by your mercy, that they will all sing your glories. being as pleased as the gopis were when released from the hands of Sankachuda. All the great sages, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, the goddess of fortune, Sita, and even your father and mother were all delivered by your causeless mercy. We also have been thus delivered, and we always sing the transcendental glories of your activities.
Therefore, I think that if the killing of Jarasan is undertaken first, that will automatically solve many other problems. As for the Rajsurya sacrifice arranged in Hastinapur, it will be held either because of the pious activities of the imprisoned kings or impious activities of Jarasan. My lord, it appears that you are to go personally to Hastinapur to conquer demonic kings like Jarasan and Shishupal, to release the pious imprisoned king, and also perform the great Rajsurya sacrifice. Consider all these points. I think that your lordship should immediately proceed to Hastinapur.
The advice of Uddhavas was appreciated by all who were present in the assembly, and even considered that Lord Krishna going to Hastinapur would be beneficial from all points of view. The great sage Narad, the elderly personalities of the Yadu dynasty, and the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, all supported the statement of Uddhava. Lord Krishna then took permission from his father, Vasudev, and grandfather, Ugrasena, and he immediately ordered his servants, Daruk and Jaitra, to arrange for travel to Hastinapur. When everything was prepared, Lord Krishna especially bid farewell to Lord Balaram and the king of the Yadus, Ugrasen, and after dispatching his queens along with their children and sending their necessary luggage ahead, he mounted his chariot, which bore the flag marked by the symbol of Garuda.
Before starting the procession, Lord Krishna satisfied the great sage Narad by offering him different kinds of articles of worship. Naradji wanted to fall at the lotus feet of Krishna, but because the Lord was playing the part of a human being, he simply offered his respects in his mind and fixing the transcendental form of the Lord with his heart. He left the assembly house by the airways. Usually, the sage Narad does not walk on the surface of the globe but travels in outer space. After departure from Narad, Lord Krishna addressed the messenger who had come from the imprisoned kings and told him that they should not be worried, for he would very soon arrange to kill the king of Magad Jarasandha. Thus he wished good fortune to all the imprisoned kings, and the messengers, after receiving this assurance from Lord Krishna, the messenger returned to the imprisoned kings and informed them of the happy news of the Lord's forthcoming visit. All the kings were joyful at the news and began to wait very anxiously for the Lord's arrival.
And the chariot of Lord Krishna.
643. Now Lord Krishna thus entered the city of the Pandavas, enjoyed the beautiful. ये दे दो. Hare Krishna. The chariot of Lord Krishna started for Hastinapur, accompanied by many other chariots, along with elephants, cavalry, infantry, and similar royal paraphernalia. तो पहुंच गए थे ना last time. Bugles, drums, trumpets, conch shells, and horns all produced a loud, auspicious sound, which vibrated in all directions. The 16,000 queens, headed by the goddess of fortune, Rukmani Devi, the ideal wife of Lord Krishna, accompanied by their respective sons, all followed behind Lord Krishna. They were dressed in costly garments, decorated with ornaments, and their bodies were smeared with sandalwood pulp and garlanded with fragrant flowers. The riding on palanquins, nicely decorated with silks, flags, and golden lace, they followed their exalted husband, Lord Krishna. In fanatry, soldiers carried shields, swords, and lances in their hands and acted as royal bodyguards to the queens. In the rear of the processions, in their hands and acted as royal bodyguards to the queens. In the rear of the processions were the wives and the children of the other followers, and there were many society girls also following. Many beasts of burden like bulls, buffalo, mules, and asses carried the camps. Bedding the carpets, and the women who followed were seated in separate palanquins on the backs of camels. This panoramic procession were accompanied by the shouts of the people and was full with the display of different colored flags, umbrellas and whisks, and different varieties of weapons, dress, ornaments, helmets, and armaments shining in the sunlight. The procession appeared just like an ocean with high waves and sharks.
In this way, the procession of Lord Krishna's party advanced toward Hastinapur, New Delhi, and gradually passed through the kingdom of Ananta Gujarat provinces, Suryanya Surat, the great district of Rajasthan, and then Kurukshetra. Between those kingdoms were many mountains, rivers, towns, villages, pasturing grounds, and mining fields. The procession passed through all these places in its advance. On his way to Hastinapur, the Lord crossed two big rivers, the Dhruvaswati and Saraswati. Then he crossed the province of Panchal and Matsya. In this way, he untimely arrived at Hastinapur or Indraprasth.
The audience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not very commonplace. Therefore, when King Yudhisthira heard that Lord Krishna had already arrived in his capital city, Hastinapur, he became so joyful that all his hair stood on end in great ecstasy, and he immediately came out of the city to properly receive him. He ordered the musical vibration of different instruments and songs, and the learned brahmanas of the city began to chant the hymns of the Vedas very loudly. Lord Krishna is known as Hrikesha, the master of the senses, and King Yudhisthira went forward to receive him exactly as the senses meet the consciousness of life. King Yudhisthira was the elderly son of Krishna. Naturally, he had great affection for the Lord, and as soon as he saw him, his heart became filled with great love and affection. He had not seen the Lord for many days, and therefore he thought himself most fortunate to see him present before him. The king, therefore, began to embrace Lord Krishna again and again in great affection.
The eternal form of Lord Krishna is the everlasting residence of goddess of fortune. As soon as King Yudhisthira embraced him, he became free from all the contamination of material existence. He immediately felt transcendental bliss and merged in a ocean of happiness. There were tears in his eyes, and his body shook in ecstasy. He completely forgot that he was living in this material world. After this, Bhimsen, the second brother of the Pandavas, smiled and embraced Lord Krishna, thinking of him as his own maternal cousin, and thus he also merged in great ecstasy. Bhimsen was so filled with ecstasy that for the time being, he forgot his material existence. Then Lord Sri Krishna himself embraced the other three Pandavas, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev. The eyes of all three brothers were inundated with tears, and Arjun embraced Krishna again and again because they were intimate friends. The two younger Pandava brothers, after being embraced by Lord Krishna, fell down at his lotus feet to offer their respects. Lord Krishna thereafter offered his obeisance to the Brahmanas present, as well as to the elder members of the Kuru dynasty, like Bhishma, Drona, and Dhritarashtra. There were many kings of different provenance, such as Kuru, Srijaya, and Kekaya, and Lord Krishna duly reciprocated greeting and respect with them. The professional reciters like the Sutas, Magadas, and Banditas, accompanied by the Brahmanas, offered their respectful prayers to the Lord. Performing artists like the Gandharvas as well as royal jokers began to play their Panava drums, kansels, kettle drums, binas, mridangas, and bagals. But they exhibited their dancing to please the Lord. Thus, the all-famous Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, entered the great city of Hastinapura, which was opulent in every respect. While Lord Krishna was entering the city, all the people talked amongst themselves about the glories of the Lord, praising his transcendental name, qualities, form, and so on.
The roads, streets, and lanes of Hastinapur were all sprinkled with fragrant water through the trunks of intoxicated elephants. In different places of the city, there were colorful festoons and flags decorating the houses and streets. At important crossroads, there were gates with golden decorations, and at the two sides of the gates, there were golden water jugs. These beautiful decorations glorified to the opulence of the city. Participating this great ceremony, all the citizens gathered here and there, dressed in colorful new clothing and decorated with ornaments, flowers, garlands, and fragrant scents. The houses were all illuminated by hundreds and thousands of lamps placed in different corners of the cornices, walls, columns, bases, and architraves, and from far away the rays of the lamps appeared to be celebrating the festival of Deepavali, a particular festival observed of the New Year's Day of the Hindu calendar. Within the walls of the houses, fragrant incense was burning and smoke rose through the windows, making the entire atmosphere very pleasing. On the top of every house, flags were flapping, and the golden water pots kept on the roofs shone brilliantly. Last time we read.
Lord Krishna thus entered the city of the Pandavas, enjoyed the beautiful atmosphere, and slowly proceeded ahead. When the young girls in every house heard that Lord Krishna, the only object worth seeing, was passing on the road, they were very eager to see all famous personality. Their hair loosened, and their tightened saris became slack due to the hastily running to see him. They gave up their household engagements, and those who were lying in bed with their husbands immediately left them and came directly down onto the street to see Lord Krishna. The procession of elephants, horses, chariots, and infantry was very crowded. Some of the girls, being unable to see properly in the crowd, go up on the roofs of the houses. Pleased to see Lord Krishna passing with his thousands of queens, they showered flowers on the procession, embraced Lord Krishna within their minds, and gave him a hearty reception. When they saw him in the midst of his many queens, like the full moon situated amidst many luminaries, they began to talk among themselves.
One girl said to another, "My dear friend, it is very difficult to guess what kind of pious activities these queens have performed, for they are always enjoying the smiling face and loving grace of Krishna." While Lord Krishna was thus passing on the road at the interval, some of the citizens, who were all rich, respectable, and freed from sinful activities, presented auspicious articles of the Lord to the Lord, just to offer him a reception in the city. They worshipped him as a humble servitor.
When Lord Krishna entered the palace, all the ladies there became overwhelmed with affection just upon seeing him. They immediately received Lord Krishna with glittering eyes, expressing their love and affection for him. And Lord Krishna smiled and accepted their feelings and gestures of reception. When Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, saw her nephew Lord Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, she became overpowered with love and affection. She at once got up from her bedstead and appeared before him with her daughter-in-law, Draupadi, and in maternal love and affection she embraced him. As he brought Krishna within the palace, King Yudhisthira became so confused in his jubilation that he practically forgot what he was to do at that time in order to receive Krishna and worship him properly. Lord Krishna delightfully offered his respects and obeisances to Kunti and other elderly ladies of the palace. His younger sister, Subhadra, was also standing there with Draupadi, and both offered their respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. At the indication of her mother-in-law, Draupadi brought clothing, ornaments, and garlands, and with this paraphernalia they received the queens Rukmini, Satyabhama, Bhadra, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda, Lakshman, and the devoted Satya. These principal queens of Lord Krishna were first received, and then the remaining queens were also offered a proper reception. King Yudhisthira arranged for Krishna's rest and saw that all who came with him, namely his queens, his soldiers, his ministers, and his secretaries, were comfortably situated. He had arranged that they would experience a new feature of reception every day while staying as guests of the Pandavas.
It was during this time that Lord Sri Krishna, with the help of Arjuna, allowed to fire god Agni to devour the Khandap forest for his satisfaction. During the forest fire, Krishna saved the demon Mayasura, who was hiding in the forest. Upon being saved, Mayasura felt obliged to the Pandavas and Lord Krishna, and he constructed a wonderful assembly house within the city of Hastinapur to please King Yudhisthira. Lord Krishna remained in the city of Hastinapur for several months. During his stay, he enjoyed strolling here and there. He used to drive on the chariots with Arjuna, and many warriors and soldiers used to follow them. Thus ended the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 71st chapter of Krishna, Lord Krishna in Indraprastha city.
Chapter 72. The Liberation of King Jarasandha. In the great assembly of respectable citizens, friends, relatives, brahmanas, sages, kshatriyas, and vaishyas, in the presence of all, including his brothers, King Yudhisthira directly addressed Lord Krishna as follows: "My dear Lord Krishna, the sacrifice known as the Rajasuya Yajna is to be performed by the emperor, and it is considered by the king of all sacrifices. By performing this sacrifice, I wish to satisfy all the demigods who are your empowered representative within this material world, and I wish that you will kindly help me in this great venture so that it may be successfully executed. As far as the Pandavas are concerned, we have nothing to ask from the demigods. We are personally fully satisfied to be your devotee As you say in the Bhagavad-Gita, person bewildered by material desires worship the demigods. But my purpose is different. I want to perform this Rasuya sacrifice and invite the demigods to show that they have no power independent of you. That they are all your servants and you are the supreme personality of Godhead. Foolish persons with a poor fund of knowledge consider your lordship an ordinary human being. Sometimes they try to find fault in you, and sometimes they defame you. Therefore, I wish to perform this Rasuya Yajna. I wish to invite all the demigods, beginning from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other exalted chiefs of the heavenly planets, and in that great assembly of demigods from all parts of universe, I want to substantiate that you are the supreme personality of Godhead and that everyone is your servant.
My dear Lord, those who are constantly in Krishna consciousness and who think of your Lord's feet or his shoes are certainly freed from all contamination of material life. Such persons who engage in your service in full Krishna consciousness, who meditate upon you only and offer prayers unto you, are purified souls. Being constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness service, they are freed from the cycle of repeated birth and death. Or, even if they do not want to be freed from this material existence, but desire to enjoy material opulences, their desires are also fulfilled by their Krishna conscious activities. In fact, those who are pure devotees of your Lord's feet have no desire for material opulences. As far as we are concerned, we are fully surrendered unto your Lord's feet, and by your grace, we are so fortunate as to see you personally. Therefore, naturally, we have no desire for material opulences. The verdict of the Vedic wisdom is that you are the supreme personality of Godhead. I want to establish this fact and also want to show the world the difference between accepting you as a supreme personality and accepting you as an ordinary person, powerful historical person. I wish to show the world that one can attain the highest perfection of life simply by taking shelter at your Lord's feet, exactly as one can satisfy the branches, twigs, leaves, and flowers of an entire tree simply by watering the roots. If one takes to Krishna consciousness, his life becomes fulfilled both materially and spiritually.
This does not mean that you are partial to the Krishna conscious person and indifferent to the non-Krishna conscious person. You are equal to everyone. That is your declaration. You cannot be partial to one and not interested in others. For you sit in everyone's heart as the super soul and give everyone the respective results of his fruitive activities. You give every living entity the chance to enjoy this material world as it desires. As the super soul, you sit in the body with the living entity, giving him the results of his own actions as well as opportunities to turn towards your devotional service by developing Krishna consciousness. You openly declare that one should surrender unto you, giving up all other engagements, and that you will take charge of him, giving him relief from the reactions of all sins. Still, the living entity remains attached to materialistic activities and suffers or enjoys the reactions without your interference. You are like the desired tree in the heavenly planets, which awards benedictions according to one's desires. Everyone is free to achieve the highest perfection. But if one does not so desire, then your awarding of lesser benedictions is not due to partiality.
On hearing this statement by King Yudhishthira, Lord Krishna replied as follows: My dear King Yudhishthira, O killer of enemies, O ideal justice personified, I completely support your decision to perform the Rajsurya sacrifice. After you perform this great sacrifice, your good name will remain well established forever in the history of a human civilization. My dear king, I may inform you that all the great sages, your forefathers, the demigods, and their relatives and friends, including me, desire that you perform this sacrifice, and I think that it will satisfy every living entity. But I request that you first conquer all the kings of the world and collect all the request paraphernalia for the executing this great sacrifice. My dear King Yudhishthir, your four brothers are direct representative of important demigods like Vayu, Indra. It is said that Bhim was born of the demigod Vayu and Arjuna was born of the demigod Indra, whereas the king Yudhishthira himself was born of the demigod Yamraj. As such, your brothers are great heroes and you are the most pious and self-controlled king and are therefore known as Dharmaraj. All of you are so qualified in devotional service to me that I have automatically been conquered by you.
Lord Krishna told King Yudhishthira that he is conquered by the love of one who has conquered his senses. One who has not conquered his senses cannot conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the secret of devotional service. To conquer the senses means to engage them constantly in the service of the Lord. The specific qualification of all the Pandavas' brothers was that they always engaged their senses in the Lord's service. One who thus engages his senses becomes purified, and with purified senses, the devotee can actually render transcendental loving service to the Lord and conquer him. Lord Krishna continued, there is no one in the three worlds of the universe, including the powerful demigods, who can surpass my devotee in any of the six opulences, namely wealth, strength, reputation, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Therefore, if you want to conquer the world kings, there is no possibility of their emerging victorious.
When the Lord Krishna thus encouraged King Yudhishthira, the king's face brightened like a blooming flowers because of transcendental happiness, and thus he ordered his younger brothers to conquer all the worldly kings in all directions. Lord Krishna empowered the Pandavas to execute his great mission of chastising the infidel miscreants of the world and giving protection to his faithful devotees. In his Vishnu form, the Lord carries four weapons in his four hands, a lotus flower and a conch shell in two hands, and in the other two hands a club and a demons. Clubs and a disc. The club and disc are means for the infidel, miscreants and demons, and the lotus flower and conch shells are for the devotees. But because the Lord is the supreme absolute, the result of all his weapons is one and the same. With the club and the disc, he chastised the miscreants so that they may come to their senses and know that they are not all in all. For above them there is the Supreme Lord, and by bugling with the conch shell and offering blessings with the lotus flower, he always assures the devotees that no one can vanquish them. Even in the greatest calamity, King Yudhishthira, being thus assured by the indication of Lord Krishna, ordered his youngest brother Sahadev, accompanied by soldiers of the Srinja tribe to conquer the southern cities. Similarly, ordered Nakula, accompanied by the soldiers of the Matsya Dev, To conquer the kings of the western side, he sent Arjuna accompanied by the soldiers of Kekai Desha. To conquer the king of northern side, he ordered Bhim Sen accompanied by the soldiers of Madras. Madras to conquer the king of the eastern side.
It may be noted that by dispatching his younger brothers to conquer in different directions, King Yudhishthira did not actually intend that they were declaring war upon the kings. Actually, the brothers started for different directions to inform the respective kings about King Yudhishthira's intention to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. The kings were those informed that they were required to pay taxes for the execution of the sacrifice. This payment of taxes to Emperor Yudhishthira meant that the king accepted subjugation before him. In case of a king's refusal to act accordingly, there was certainly a fight. Thus, by their influence and strength, the brothers conquered all the kings in different directions, and they were able to bring in sufficient taxes and presentations, which they brought before King Yudhishthira.
King Yudhishthira was very anxious. However, when he heard that King Jarasandha of Magadha did not accept his sovereignty, seeing King Yudhishthira's anxiety, Lord Krishna informed him of the plan explained by Uddhava for conquering King Jarasandha. Bhimsena, Arjuna and Lord Krishna then started together for Girivraja, the capital city of Jarasandha, dressing themselves in the garb of Brahmanas. This was the plan devised by Uddhava before Lord Krishna started for Hastinapura, and now it was given practical application.
King Jarasan was very dutiful householder, and he had a great respect for the Brahmanas. He was a great fighter as a Kshatriya king, but he was never neglectful of the Vedic injunction. According to the Vedic injunction, the Brahmanas are considered to be the spiritual master of all other four castes. Lord Krishna, Arjuna and Bhimsena were actually Kshatriya, but they dressed themselves as Brahmana. At that time, when the king Jarasan was to give charity to the Brahmanas and receive them as a guest, they approached him.
Lord Krishna, in the dress of a Brahmana, said to the king, "We wish all glories to your majesty. When three guests at your royal palace, he have come from a great distance to ask you for charity, and we hope that you will kindly bestow upon us whatever we ask from you. We know about your good qualities. One who is tolerant is always prepared to tolerate everything, even though distressful, just as a criminal can perform the most abominable acts. A greatly charitable person like you can give anything and everything for which he is asked for a great personality like you. There is no distinction between relatives and outsiders. A famous man lives forever even after his death. Therefore, any person who is completely fit and able to execute acts which we perpetuate his good name and fame, and yet does not do so becomes abominable
Haribol.
persons. Such a person cannot be condemned enough, and his refusal to give charity is lamentable throughout his whole life. Your Majesty must have heard the glorious names of charitable personalities such as Harishchandra, Ratnadev, and Mudgala, who used to live only on grains picked up from the paddy field, and the great Maharaj CB, who saved the life of a pigeon by supplying flesh from his own body. These great personalities have attained immortal fame simply by sacrificing the temporarily unperishable body. Lord Krishna, in the garb of a Brahmana, thus convinced Jarasandha that fame is imperishable, but the body is perishable. If one attain imperishable name and fame by sacrificing his perishable body, he becomes a very respectable figure in the history of human civilization.
While Lord Krishna was speaking in the grave of Brahmana along with Arjuna and Bhima, Jarasandha marked that the three of them did not appear to be actual Brahmanas. There were signs of their bodies by which Jarasandha could understand that they were Kshatriyas. Their shoulders were marked with impressions due to carrying bows. They had beautiful bodily structure and their voices were grave and commanding. Thus, he definitely concluded that they were not Brahmanas but Kshatriyas. He also thought that he had seen them somewhere before, but although these three persons were Kshatriyas, they had come to his door begging alms like Brahmanas. Therefore, he decided that he would fulfill their desires in spite of their being Kshatriyas, because they had already diminished their position by the appearing before him as beggars. Under the circumstances, he thought, I am prepared to give them anything. Even if they ask for my body, I shall not hesitate to offer it to them. In this regard, he began to think of Bali Maharaj. Lord Vishnu, in the dress of Brahmana, appeared as a beggar before Bali and snatched away all of his opulences and his kingdom. He did this for the benefit of Indra, who, having been defeated by Bali Maharaj, was bereft of his kingdom. Although Bali Maharaj was cheated, his reputation as a great devotee, able to give anything and everything in charity, is still glorified. Throughout the three words, Bali Maharaj could guess that the Brahmanas was Lord Vishnu himself and had come to him just to take away his opulent kingdom on behalf of Indra. Bali's spiritual master and family priest Shukracharya repeatedly warned him about this, yet Bali did not hesitate to give in charity whatever the Brahmanas wanted, and at last he gave up everything to the Brahmana. It is my strong determination, thought Jarasandha, that if I can achieve immortal reputation by sacrificing this perishable body, I must act for that purpose. The life of a Kshatriya who does not live for the benefit of the Brahmanas is certainly condemned.
For the readers listening online, please read with clarity and loud voice. Mahadevi Mataji just told me. Alright. Actually, King Jarasandha was very liberal in giving charity to the Brahmanas, and thus he informed Lord Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna, my dear Brahmanas, you may ask from me whatever you like. If you so desire, you may take my head also. I am prepared to give it. After this, Lord Krishna addressed Jarasandha as follows. My dear king, please note that we are not actually Brahmanas, nor have we come to ask for food or grain. We are all Kshatriyas, and we have come to beg a duel with you. We hope that you'll agree to this proposal. You may note that here is the second son of King Pandu, Bhimasena, and the third son of Pandu, Arjuna. As for myself, you may know that I am your old enemy Krishna, the cousin of the Pandavas. When Lord Krishna disclosed their disguise, King Jarasandha laughed very loudly, and then, in great anger and in a great voice, he exclaimed, "You fools! If you want to fight me, then I immediately grant your request. But Krishna, I know that you are a coward. I refuse to fight with you because you become very confused when you face me in fighting. Out of fear of me, you left your own city, Mathura, and now you have taken shelter within the sea. Therefore, I must refuse to fight with you. As far as Arjuna is concerned, I know that he is younger than me and is not an equal fighter. I refuse to fight with him because he is not in any way an equal competitor. But as far as Bhimasena is concerned, I think he is a suitable competitor to fight with me." After speaking in this way, King Jarasandha immediately handed a very heavy club to Bhimasena. He himself took another, and all of them went outside the city walls to fight.
Bhimasena and King Jarasandha engaged themselves in fighting, and with their respective clubs, which were as strong as thunderbolts, they began to strike each other very severely, both of them being eager to fight. They were both expert fighters with clubs, and their techniques of striking each other were so beautiful that they appeared to be two dramatic artists dancing on a stage. When the clubs of Jarasandha and Bhimasena loudly collided, the impact sounded like that of the big tusks of two fighting elephants, or like a thunderbolt in a flashing electrical storm. When two elephants fight together in a sugarcane field, each of them snatches a stick of sugarcane, holds it tightly in its trunk, and strikes the other. At the time, the sugarcane becomes smashed by such heavy striking. Similarly, when Bhimasena and Jarasandha were heavily striking each other with their clubs on different parts of their bodies, namely the shoulders, arms, collarbone, chest, thighs, waist, and legs, their clubs were torn to pieces. In this way, all of the clubs used by Jarasandha and Bhimasena became ruined, and so the two enemies became prepared to fight with their strong-fisted hands. Jarasandha and Bhimasena were very angry, and they began to smash each other with their fists. The striking of their fists sounded like the striking of iron bars, or like the sound of thunderbolts, and the two warriors appeared to be like two elephants fighting. Neither was able to defeat the other, however, for both were experts in fighting. They were of equal strength, and their fighting techniques were also equal. Neither Jarasandha nor Bhimasena became fatigued or defeated in the fighting, although they struck each other continuously. At the end of each day's fighting, they lived at night as friends in Jarasandha's place, and the next day they fought again. In this way, they passed 27 days in fighting.
Hare Krishna. On the 28th day, Bhimsena told Krishna, "My dear Krishna, I must frankly admit that I cannot conquer Jarasan." Lord Krishna, however, knew the mystic of Jarasan's birth. Jarasan had been born in two parts from the two different mothers. When his father saw that the baby was useless, he threw the two parts into the forest. There were later found by a witch named Jara, who was skilled in black art. She managed to join the two parts of the baby from top to bottom. Knowing this, Lord Krishna therefore also knew how to kill him. He hinted Bhimsena that since Jarasan had been brought to life by the joining of the two parts of his body, he could be killed by the separation of these two parts. Thus Lord Krishna transferred his power into the body of Bhimsena and informed him to device by which Jarasan could be killed. Lord Krishna plucked a twig from a tree and buffeted it. In this way, he hinted to Bhimsena how Jarasandha could be killed. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is omnipotent, and he wants to kill someone. No one can save that person. Similarly, if he wants to save someone, no one can kill him.
Informed by the hints of Lord Krishna, Bhimsen immediately took hold of Jarasandha's legs and threw him to the ground. When Jarasandha fell, Bhimsen immediately pressed one of Jarasandha's legs to the ground and took hold of the other leg with his two hands. Catching Jarasandha in this way, he tore his body in two, bending from the arms up to the head, as an elephant breaks the branches of a tree in two. Bhimsen separated the body of Jarasandha. The audience standing nearby saw that Jarasandha's body was now divided into hallways. So, each of half had one leg, one thigh, one testicle, and half a backbone, half a chest, one collarbone, one arm, one eye, one ear, and half a face.
As soon as the news of Jarasandha's death was announced, all the citizens of Magadha began to cry, "Alas, alas!" When Lord Krishna and Arjuna embraced Bhimasena to congratulate him, although Jarasandha was killed, neither Krishna nor the two Pandava brothers made a claim to the throne. Their purpose in killing Jarasandha was to stop him from creating a disturbance to the proper discharge of world peace. A demon always creates disturbances, whereas a demigod always tries to keep peace in the world. The mission of Lord Krishna is to protect the righteous and kill the demons who disturb a peaceful situation. Therefore, Lord Krishna immediately called for the son of Jarasandha, whose name was Sahadeva, and with due ritualistic ceremonies, the Lord asked him to occupy the seat of his father and reign over the kingdom peacefully. Lord Krishna is the master of the whole cosmic creation, and he wants everyone to live peacefully and execute Krishna consciousness. After installing Sahadeva on the throne, he released all the kings and princes who had been imprisoned unnecessarily by Jarasandha. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 72nd chapter of Krishna, the liberation of King Jarasandha. So, dear devotees and devotees reading online, this ends our weekly Sunday reading of Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada, and let's offer respects to him and to all of others. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpaturvyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.